Hello, I'm going to talk today about piecing curves for kaleidoscopes and piecing curves using our good measure modern circles rulers. So a lot of people are afraid of curves and are sure that they can't do it. And there are really two things that you need to know to successfully piece curves. And once you've mastered those two things, it's a piece of cake. The first thing is cutting accurately. So and understanding why the templates matter will help you cut and piece very easily. The other thing is pinning. There's a certain strategy for pinning. But let's talk in general about just to wrap your head around the concept of piecing curves. So this is the quarter circle template for, there's 6 templates within the Modern Circles packet. And this is the quarter circle and the quarter circle square that it goes into. So this also is equivalent to 2 of template C. So 2 of these sewn together, which is what we're going to be doing today, goes into the same template piece, template A. And then templates D, E, and F also fit into this corner as well. When you lay them out, they don't look like they're going to fit together because of the seam allowance. So in every case, the curve is a 1/4 inch larger. Actually, it's a 1/2 inch larger because there's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So the circle is larger and because it gets smaller, and the piece that you're putting it into also has that 1/4 inch. So it doesn't look like it's going to fit together because they're a 1/2 inch difference. However, the dash line represents the seam allowance, and if you overlap them, you can see that they'll fit together perfectly. So let's go through once you've cut accurately using the templates, or if you are using template plastic, it's the same thing. This is for the lavish pattern in Modern Quilts Illustrated 14. Okay, so let me grab some pins. The first thing you're going to do, and this is shown in the pattern for lavish, but it's the case for any time you're doing curves, is you're going to take the quarter circle and you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to finger press the center point. In this case, the center point is in the middle of this motif because we've cut that to work that way. We fussy cut this. Now we're going to take the 2/8 circles that we've sewn together to form a quarter circle. And we can align the finished seam right here. We're going to align that seam with that curve that we just pressed. And that's where the first pin is going to go. The thing that you don't want to do when you're piecing curves is to start at one end and work your way around pinning. Because what's going to happen is, because of the bias, it's going to stretch. So you always want to start in the middle and then anchor each side and then pin in between. So the first seam, and it always looks odd. I'm going to turn it around for you. I always say it looks like an ox when it looks so wrong when you pin it. But you'll see that the corners are going to stick out the way an ox's horns would, and this is the head of the ox. And that's how you know. A lot of people that make the mistake and put it in another direction, but you're going to pin right here, 1/4 of an inch in from the seam allowance. And because we press our seams open, the pin is going to slide right in between. If you're pinning, if you are somebody who presses to the side, then you'll need to figure out how to get the pin through the stitching. So that's going to be our first pin right there. Now this is the part that takes a little bit of mental gymnastics. This corner is going to be placed over here. So I find it the easiest thing to do is to put the raw edges to the ceiling. And one of these corners, you're going to align that so it's a straight line. And you're going to put the pin 1/4 of an inch in from the raw edge. By doing this, we're going to make sure that we don't have any stretching. So we're anchoring these corners immediately. That's the first order of business for piecing curves. So we've got these two lined up, so that will be a straight line when we're done sewing. And we've got 1/4 of an inch from the corner, and we're pinning there. Now we have the challenge of putting the additional pins in. I like to put my fingers in like this because my fingers are the same size, and I know that I'm taking up a similar amount of fabric with them. And I just, at that point, guess, because that's typically close enough. Another option would be to fold each of these in half if that's more comfortable for you. But I find that if I can put my fingers in similar places on either side of the motif, that gets me pretty close to where I need to be. These curves are on the larger side, so there won't be any notching that you need to do, and they're pretty forgiving in terms of the seam allowances. Okay, so I'm putting them there. And as I said, if you find it easier to fold, feel free to fold. And I'm pinning 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge. So now you'll notice, and this is the tricky part to remember. You'll notice that one side is flat here. And then you'll notice that one side is rippled. So the memory device I use is that I think of these rippled like rays of the sun, and I think of it sunny side up. So I like the idea of thinking of this as the rays of the circle, and that you want to sew with this side up. Because if you sew with the rippled side down, you're more likely to get tucks. You want to have the tucks able to be managed and adjusted under the presser foot, where you can see what's happening and how the fabric is moving under the presser foot. So I like sunny side up. Okay, so let's sew that. So I've got a little starter here, and I'm going to put it underneath, pull the thread, just to get that started. Some people like to do a tacking stitch at the end. I don't find it necessary, but again, a lot of quilting is figuring out what works for you. All right, so I'm using a 1/4 inch foot, and you can see that what I'm trying to do is to make sure that these raw edges here are aligned. So I'm going to start sewing. And you'll see that these curves are big enough that I'm not coming across any tucks, that all of the fabric is stretching at a nice angle, and everything is easy peasy. I'm not sewing over the pins because I've had them break and shoot in my eye before, so I really discourage people from sewing over pins. So you'll see right now that it looks like there's going to be a little bit of a tuck right there, but as I get closer, I'll see that it just disappears. If you do have a tuck, what I recommend you do is to put your needle down and then lift the presser foot and pull the fabric away. That's the easiest way to make sure that you're not going to get any tucks. But I seem to have smooth sailing right here. I'm just using my fingernails to just edge those raw edges together. I'm going to pull out that. A needle down anytime I need to pull out a pin. Now I'm going to look and see how this is going over here. This seems fine. And again, you can see that I'm pulling to the side because it is a curve. It's not going to be, you're not sewing in a straight line. You're sewing around the edge there. Okay. Okay, so let's go press. Okay, so here's our block. And we press our seams open, especially with piecing curves. I find it easier to distribute the bulk. If you want to press in one direction, then press away. But as I said, we like to press open. So using a good steam iron, we use the Rowenta Focus. We love the steam capacity of it and find that it really works well with getting a flat circle, which is really critical to pinning. So we're going to use the tip. And we're going to just go all the way around. And then flip it over. One burst of steam. And it's perfect. So you're going to use the same process for piecing the curves for the concentric circles and the 8th circles that you did for the quarter circles as you did for the 8th circle that was sewn in two here. So for you can sew the concentric circles in any order you want. I like to sew the smallest thing to the biggest thing first. I find that easier. And again, you'd fold it in half. And then you'd fold this in half, but I can also see that there's a mark there. And you'd pin the exact same way. And again, you're going to have those little oxen horns. And you're going to pin the exact same way for that. Sew that, press that. And you're going to do the same thing for this outer concentric circle. So let me know if you're having any questions about piecing the curves. You shouldn't need to notch any of these, and they should go together very smoothly. So let us know how you do with the curves because we're determined to get you confident with curves. Thanks.